All right, folks, we need to dive into what's going on right now across the country with the ATF's pistol brace rule and how it's currently being blocked coast to coast. The Department of Justice under President Trump hasn't pulled the plug just yet, and this thing is still heading toward oral arguments. But that entire legal showdown might be cut short because Congress has now stepped in and is taking action on the short-barreled shotgun issue. Let's unpack exactly what's happening. Like I mentioned at the top, there have been some major developments in the fight against the ATF's push to treat brace pistols as short-barreled rifles. Right now, there's a nationwide hold on the brace rule, and several preliminary injunctions are in place. These legal protections are shielding different firearms advocacy groups, their members, companies, and customers from enforcement for the time being. Now, with a change in leadership and the new Second Amendment executive order from Trump, everyone's been watching closely to see how the Fifth Circuit would respond. Folks were also curious what direction the Biden administration's pistol brace rule would take and whether the Trump team would step in and roll it back. In this case, the Trump administration informed the Fifth Circuit that they wanted to temporarily pause the legal process. The idea was to buy some time and figure out how they wanted to proceed. The court agreed and granted a short-term stay on the case. That stay was set to automatically expire on the 14th of April. Well, that date came and went without the Trump Department of Justice making any new filings or updates, no revised briefs, no fresh arguments, nothing. So the court moved things along and scheduled oral arguments for the case involving mock-braced pistols. Those arguments are set for the 4th of August. That suggests the court believes the Trump administration still intends to move forward, at least for now. However, this whole court case could be wiped off the map soon. Why? Because Congress is now stepping into the mix and bringing legislation to the table that targets the same issue. They've added the SHORT Act into a new legislative package. And if that package makes it through both the Senate and the House, and President Trump signs it into law, then the ATF's pistol brace rule under the Biden administration would be dead in the water. Not only that, but all of these lawsuits, including this mock-brace pistol case and others being heard in different circuits, would likely become irrelevant. If the SHORT Act passes, enforcement of the brace rule essentially disappears, and most of these legal battles would likely be dropped altogether. So here's the latest update on the mock lawsuits surrounding pistol braces. If you've been keeping tabs, you'll remember that the ATF has already taken a string of defeats in court over this rule. Several courts handed out preliminary injunctions blocking enforcement, but most importantly, Judge Akinor recently delivered a final ruling on the core of the case and flat out tossed the rule in its entirety. That decision amounted to a full nationwide vacatur of the ATF's pistol brace regulation. In his opinion, Judge Akinor concluded that after thoroughly reviewing the matter, the final rule should be treated as a legislative action, not simply a logical continuation of the proposed rule. He made it clear that the final rule failed the logical outgrowth test and declared it unlawful. As a result, the rule must be scrapped or sent back for further correction. This was a big win because it didn't just pause enforcement. It entirely nullified the rule nationwide, at least for the time being. Now, in response to that blow, the Biden-era ATF and Department of Justice chose to appeal the decision up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. All the legal filings have already been submitted, briefs from the Biden administration are in, and things are now set to proceed toward oral arguments. However, with the new Trump administration now in charge, the Department of Justice asked for a pause, temporary hold on the case, so they could reassess and potentially adjust their stance. We've already seen the Trump team shift gears on several high-profile Second Amendment cases. For instance, they changed their position in the Peterson suppressor challenge and recently filed an amicus brief in support of gun rights in the case challenging the Illinois rifle and magazine ban. They've also weighed in on multiple other Second Amendment matters at the Supreme Court level, so it wouldn't be surprising if they pivoted here as well. That said, in this specific case, even though they requested the pause, the Trump administration hasn't made any concrete moves yet. There's been no supplemental briefing, no new filings, nothing to signal a policy change so far. Because of that inaction, the Fifth Circuit has now stepped in and scheduled oral arguments on its own for the week of August 4th. This could mean that the court believes the administration still intends to push forward with the appeal, or at the very least, they're not going to delay the process any longer. So unless the Trump team files something soon to officially change course, the court is moving forward with the challenge as it stands. That might suggest the Department of Justice is still technically defending the pistol brace rule, even if no new arguments have been made. Personally, I don't think that's going to be the final outcome. It's more likely that the Trump administration is holding back for strategic reasons, especially given the statements we've heard out of the Attorney General's office. The Chief of Staff has publicly said they've reversed their stance on multiple other cases again, like the suppressor lawsuit and the Illinois magazine bans. But when it comes to the brace rule, nothing has changed so far. That could very well be because they're waiting to see what happens in Congress with the legislation around short-barreled shotguns. If that gets resolved, it could make this entire court battle irrelevant. So here's the big news. There's been real momentum lately with efforts to get the SHORT Act added back into House Resolution 1, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, and that push was successful. Now, if that legislation makes it through both the Senate and the House, and President Trump signs it into law, this entire pistol brace mess pushed by the previous administration basically becomes irrelevant. Why? Because the Biden administration's pistol brace rule hinges entirely on treating brace-equipped pistols as if they were short-barreled rifles falling under the restrictions of the National Firearms Act. But if the SHORT Act removes short-barreled shotguns and rifles from the NFA's jurisdiction, then the legal foundation for that brace rule disappears. It becomes unenforceable, completely invalid, and along with it, all lawsuits tied to that rule would likely be tossed out as well. So if you're serious about wiping out the pistol brace regulation for good, one of the most effective things you can do right now is get involved. I strongly urge you to contact your senators. Let them know you support the SHORT Act, which would end NFA classification of short-barreled firearms, and also voice your support for the Hearing Protection Act. That legislation targets NFA restrictions on suppressors. Together, these would deal a serious blow to the overreach we've seen from the NFA. You can call the Capitol switchboard at area code 202, number 243121. Again, that's 202-243-121. Make sure your message is clear. You back both the SHORT Act and the Hearing Protection Act, and you want them kept in House Resolution 1. Now here's something else that's important to understand. The current activity in the Fifth Circuit Court, including the upcoming oral arguments, does not overturn or interfere with the nationwide vacatur issued by Judge O'Connor. That ruling still stands unless the Fifth Circuit reverses it after hearing arguments, or unless the Trump administration moves to formally withdraw the rule, or the SHORT Act becomes law first and makes the whole thing obsolete. Honestly, I'm hoping those oral arguments scheduled for August end up being unnecessary. If the SHORT Act passes, that would make this entire legal battle pointless. But even if that doesn't happen right away, we're still on solid footing. The Fifth Circuit has already signaled that they don't think the brace rule was lawful under the Administrative Procedure Act, just like they found during the earlier injunction review. So ideally, the Senate locks in both the Hearing Protection Act and the SHORT Act inside House Resolution 1. That would seriously weaken the power of the NFA and give law-abiding Americans some real breathing room when it comes to firearms like short-barreled rifles and suppressors. That's where things currently stand in this major fight to eliminate the pistol brace rule nationwide. That's how it's all tied together: the Trump administration's approach, the role Congress is playing with the SHORT Act, and what's happening in the courts right now. As this all continues to unfold, I'll be sure to keep you posted with updates. And as always, thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to like the video, drop a comment below, and hit that subscribe button. Remember, this country was founded by armed scholars, and it'll be preserved by them too.